Michael Charles is going to lead our series today, lead the work to educate children in Haiti, as well as providing leadership training and coaching to teenagers and young professionals. What a wonderful endeavor. We're very happy to have him. He has been in the banking industry, as have I, and he's worked with other Fortune 500 companies. He's a contributing author, and I'm going to turn it over to him now. Michael, thank you so much for your participation today.
Well, thanks, Connie, for the great introduction, and good afternoon, everybody. As Connie said, my name is Michael Charles, and it's really great to be here with you today and to have this opportunity to spend the next 45 minutes to an hour with you talking about a topic that I think is just so fascinating, and it's a topic that makes such an enormous difference to the results of any project, any organization, any team, or any individual for that matter. And that's the topic of leadership. So as we go through, as Connie said, if you have questions, please feel free to note them down, and we'll have some time for questions at the end. And so I'm gonna go and get started, and because I know you guys made everybody on the line here made a commitment to be here, so I'm not gonna waste your time. So now I don't think there is really any part of an organization or any part of your life that leadership doesn't affect. So whether it's leadership of self, leadership of others, or leadership of leaders, it applies to everything. And if you think about it, strong leadership is at the heart of every sizable project achievement. If you think about it, it always has been. And so everything rises and falls with leadership. So now, obviously, leadership is a huge topic. Right? It would take perhaps months, maybe years, and not just minutes to do it justice. But I know you're very busy and that your time is very precious. So it's my goal today, even though we don't have that long together, to leave you thinking that this was the best 45 to 50 minutes that you've ever spent. See, I want to give you as much value as I possibly can, and in that short time that we have. So we'll cover some tried and tested and proven ideas that, when they are applied, really makes a difference to our results. And that's by developing our leadership skills. Now, leadership is, I'm sure most of you or all of you know this, absolutely a teachable skill. Right? Leadership is predictable. Right? Leadership operates by laws. Right? You learn the laws and then you can learn to lead. But if you ignore those laws, then you're always going to struggle with leadership. And it's always going to be a source of frustration. So the core philosophy of the content that I'm going to talk about today, the key concepts, they come from John Maxwell's internationally best-selling book, The 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership. It's a book that's been translated into 47 languages around the world, about millions of copies sold, and it basically has become a leadership Bible for many organizations. And I think one of the reasons that it's been and continues to be so successful is the information is very accessible. It's not some intellectual thesis on leadership, right? It's very simple, practical steps, easy to understand, easy to implement, but that makes a huge difference right away. And so, unfortunately, we are not going to be able to cover all the 21 laws in this short amount of time that we have. But we're going to look at just 3 of them. And for those of you who want to know more, in the end, I'll show you a couple of different ways that you can do that. And you can dig into these concepts in more detail. And so let's really get started. What is leadership? Right? Well, leadership encompasses far more than most people initially think, right? It starts with leadership of self, leadership of others, leadership of leaders, then of business, and at the highest level, You have the statementship of enterprise level leadership and country level leadership. So a very simple definition of leadership is it is the facilitation of the process of the crystallization of potential into desired results. And that's done through systematic organization of talent. I'm sure as project managers you can relate to this. See, we are all born with different talents, right? But talent is not enough, right? Talent does not equal results, right? Otherwise, all successful people would be talented, and we know they're not. Or all unsuccessful people would be untalented, and again, we know they're not. So, and I'm sure you also know from your own observation that this is just not true. So, do you know any talented people who don't seem to get the results they deserve? Of course you do. You probably know dozens of them. Do you know any successful people who seems to lack talent? Again, they're everywhere, aren't they? So see, talent will help, but it's not enough on its own. See, something else is needed, and that catalyst necessary to crystallize potential into results is leadership. And one of my favorite books of John is called Talent is Never Enough. And I've taken this slide from that book. Take a look at this on the screen here. It says more than 50% of all CEOs of Fortune 500 companies had a C or C minus averages in college. 65% of all US senators came from the bottom half of their school classes. 75% of US presidents were in the lower half club in school. And finally, more than 50% of millionaire entrepreneurs never finish college. So as you can see, some of our beliefs around why people are successful need to be re-examined, right? There has to be more to it than talent. Talent is given, but success, it must be earned. And so Edward Pyron said, if you have success, there will always be a fool to say you have talent. So when we look into this, we see it's leadership that makes the difference, right? Because everything rises and falls with leadership. Now, I said we're just going to take a look at just 3 of these laws. And you can see on the slide there, we're going to take a look at the law of the lid, the law of influence, and the law of process. And so, as you can see, there's a short description of each one of the laws there. How well you lead determines how successful you're going to be, and that's the law of the lid. Leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. That's the law of influence. And leadership develops daily and not in a day, and that's the law of process. So I've chosen these laws because when we realize we'll only be as successful as our ability to lead, or that leadership is influence, and our influence with people, and therefore our ability to lead develops through a process. It evolves daily. When we see this, then it gives us something to immediately set to work on, right? And that's the process of developing our ability to influence. And as project managers, that's what we do on a daily basis, isn't it? Okay then, so let's look at the law of the lid. How well you lead determines how successful you are. It's as simple as that. And as project managers, this is very key for us, right? Look at it this way. If you put your left hand up and consider that your leadership lid, and you put your right hand below that with some gaps, and you consider that your business. Now, your results can rise to reach your leadership lid, but it will never rise any higher than that. Right? In other words, whatever your leadership skills and abilities are, at this moment, that's the lid on your either potential as a project manager, or if you also do run a business, that's your potential for success. So your leadership lead in this context is your ability to cast vision, to get a team of like-minded individuals together, to unite those people in a common purpose behind that vision, to help them all see how their own goals are in alignment with the team goals. And in the word of Jim Collins, to get the right people on the bus and get the wrong people off the bus. And to get the right people in the right seat on the bus, and then to get the bus going in the right direction. And then as project manager, again, this is key for us. So let's take a look at an example. Right? It's easy to see how leadership ability will limit the potential of any business. Right? Because the problem of neglect of leadership in most organizations is systemic. Right? Think of how most people get leadership positions. They're not selected for their leadership ability. They are usually selected or chosen by their technical ability. So for example, the best accountant now becomes the team leader. Now, it makes sense, right? It seems to make sense until you realize that leadership is a totally different skill set. Then it's easy to see what really happens. You lose a good technician and you get a bad manager. Now, the company, the new leader, and the team, they're all unhappy. The law of duality is never more evident than in this scenario where you have this technician and promoted to a leader and then everybody's unhappy, because the lack of leadership ability is a serious limit on the productivity of that team. I mean, this is so common. It really is. And we see it over and over again. I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. You've seen it before, right? Have you had a bad boss in the past? Or maybe somebody that got promoted because of their technical skills? You probably wish some of them were on the score with you. You see, the team could be a talented group of people, but their achievements will not rise beyond the leadership lead of the leader. So what doesn't happen is this: business ability does not rise beyond leadership ability. It just doesn't happen. It's not going to happen to me. It's not going to happen to you. It's not going to happen to anybody.